folks, welcome to Now You Know. My name is Chris Perkins, and we have like almost the perfect setting for this show today. We're sitting on the shores of Lake Wesserunsett, and we're on Nancy Macon's dock, and just you couldn't ask for a better location this and a better day with, knock on wood, no wind after a couple of days of a lot of wind. So this is like the perfect setting. And we're very fortunate this morning to have members of the Lake Wesserunsett Association, actually all board members of the Lake Wesserunsett Association with us this morning. And going from my left to right, we have Eric Latte. Actually, Eric was on a previous show on Jacob Pines and Jackson Woods. And then we have Amy Bonsall. And then we have Elizabeth Payne. And then we have our hostess, Nancy Macon. So here we are. And today we're going to talk about the Lake Wesserunsett Association. And just for FYI, I'm also a board member on Lake Wesserunsett Association. So I have a passion for the organization. And I've been wanting to get this show on the air for a couple of years. And now we're finally doing it. So anyways, we're going to have fun with it today. And let's start with maybe getting a little history on the Lake Wesserunsett Association. Our current version is like the third iteration of the Lake Wesserunsett Association. Right. And Eric, who is the closest we got to a local historian, Eric's going to give us a little history on that.
Okay, yeah, we are, as Chris said, the third iteration of this group. This current group was started in 1999, and we at the time we were looking at finding ways to protect the lake and ultimately the watershed, vice versa, protect the watershed to protect the lake. And in the process of doing that, we discovered that there had been two previous lake associations for somewhat similar purposes, but differences as well. The first being in 1927, and it was, I have the incorporation papers for that year. It was to erect and maintain fish screens at the inlets and outlets of the lake, to improve the waters of, fish in, and navigation of said lake, and improve and beautify the shores of the said lake, and to do any and all things necessary and proper pertaining to said purposes. So it's a pretty wide open mission statement that went into the initial corporation. A little background on that: at the time in 1927, East Madison had a flourishing woolen mill that relied on water power, and one of the things that happened as a result of that was the lake level was drawn down, far below what we'd see today. You'd have 50, 60 feet of beach area out in front of your properties on the lake. And one of the purposes of the initial association was to try to help maintain water levels. They put in navigation. You could get out there and drag your boat pretty easily on some of the hidden obstacles. So part of the purpose was to see if they could get the woolen mill to accept the purchase of power from the Lake Association and run the mill on electricity for part of the season, especially during the driest months. So I'm not sure just exactly when that all ended. Probably late 30s, early 40s, maybe with World War II, and people's minds were on other things. But the lake and the corporation was lost, was inactive. And in 1950, there was another attempt to have a lake association for the express purposes then of the lake coming in, so we have a little water noise behind us there. We have the Willer Mill was still in operation, although not for long at that time. But again, the lake levels are being drawn down. I recall being as a young kid on the lake here, a couple summers of rather massive fish kills from low waters and probably resulting in low oxygen levels, and quantities of white perch washing up on the shoreline and smelling wonderful. And another lake association was incorporated, and they did attempt to buy power to run the Willer Mill. The Willer Mill went defunct shortly thereafter, about 1952, 51, 52, I think. And just a little side note of the history of this whole business. The machinery was removed from the Willer Mill. Someone thought it was a great idea to have a chicken house right in the middle of the village. It smelled lovely. And in probably 52 or 53, maybe the chicken house had been in operation for a year or so. Apparently some man-made lightning struck, and the whole complex burned flat. A problem removed. I found when we researched to incorporate this current association that the 1950 version was suspended in 1982. And then in 99 we reincorporated. And that came after a series of meetings with some folks from the University of Maine Cooperative Extension regarding water quality in the lake and watershed management and a number of things that we're heavily involved in now. So yeah, that's a nutshell of the background of the...
So we're number 3.
We're number 3.
And we've been going pretty strong since, 1999.
Yeah.
So that's, 23 years. And actually, I must say, being on the board the last few years, we have really fired up operations. We've got a lot of things going on, and I usually don't come with notes. I try to keep things as much in my head as I can, but considering everything that's going on with this committee right now, I figured I'd bring a few notes today just to keep me straight on everything. And I thought maybe we'd take the next couple of minutes and kind of go through, I call it nuts and bolts of what our organization is. And we have an 11-member board. And matter of fact, it just became last year an 11-member board. It was a 7-member board, and honestly, we wanted to get some new blood in and kind of spread the wealth and get more people involved in the organization. So we did last year. We changed our bylaws and incorporated 11 people. And just so you know a little bit, our president is Mark Doty, and Mark has been president for quite a long time, and he's maybe president for life at this point, I guess. And he has done an amazing job for us, and he's done a great job running meetings. And Mark has been all in on everything, including all our subcommittee meetings and everything else. And it's gone from being a little part-time job almost to a full-time job with everything that we've got going on. Our vice president is Eric Lottie. Eric, you've been here from the get-go.
Yeah.
And you actually were president for a period of time.
I was president, and I started out as just on the board of trustees, and then was president, and then passed that on to Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then our secretary is Elizabeth. And my goodness, I mean, she takes the notes of all of our meetings, and this is not just the regular meetings, this is all the subcommittee meetings. And it seems to me you're always producing notes on various things, and unbelievably good notes too. It keeps us track of everything that's going on in our committees. But that actually ends up being, short of the president, I think the most work involved in our association. Our treasurer, well, I should say there's another one too. Treasurer Chip Button. We told him he's treasurer for life. I don't know if he believes that or not, but he's done a fantastic job for us. He's now sold his business to Austin Associates, and hopefully we can keep him on for a while now because he's just done a fantastic job. The other trustees, hopefully I get everybody. Barb Arnold came on last year. Amy Bonzel, right here, who came on last year. Jay Conway, he's been on for probably about 4 years, same amount of time I have. And then Nancy Macon, who is going to go off this year, unfortunately, but she's social chairman for life, so she's going to stay on in another way. I'm on. Margot Reed, who honestly was our secretary for quite a long time. Margot's been in the middle of everything over the years. And Rich Werpel is our final board of directors member. And just a few more nuts and bolts. I mean, our regular membership meetings, correct me if I'm wrong, are basically from April to October. I believe it's the second Tuesday of the month, 5 o'clock. Meetings last for usually maybe an hour and a half. And are open to the public. And we've been doing them because of COVID. We've been doing it on Zoom. At some point, probably it will be more of a hybrid. We can meet in person, where actually we do that at the fire station in East Madison, and then keep Zoom as well. And I think Zoom has ended up being a good thing for us because I think it's brought in more people who might be a distance away, and it would be difficult for them to get to regular board meetings. So I think it's really, helped to broaden our membership by doing it.
That's especially true when we have special meetings, say during the winter months when people are far away.
Oh, it's been very helpful, and we've had also a number of subcommittee meetings, particularly over this past year, and Elizabeth will get into this a little bit more. We established the Watershed Conservation Committee, and that's really been going for 2 years with multiple subcommittee meetings throughout the year as we've tried to get that program up and running. Any other nuts and bolts that you can think of here that you want to mention?
There's all the, well, I guess you'd call them kind of services that the association provides.
Yes.
We have a boat inspector we employ at the landing to help with invasive plants. We put out the channel markers, as one in the background over here, I noticed. Channel and hazard markers. Do water quality samplings. There's a number of things that goes into the kind of the basic functions of it.
Well, as part of my cheat sheet, which I brought today, I've got actually a most recent meeting that we have, and our agenda includes, we really do have a number of committees, and one of them is water quality. Does anyone kind of want to address what that committee of that operation does for water quality?
I can speak to that.
Sure.
My father runs the program at the moment, so I see it firsthand. Basically, it's about checking twice a month to make sure that our water quality is maintained and is high quality. And if there are any markers of any issues, then we can raise the flag early. But we're looking at everything from the clarity of the lake to the temperature of the lake, the quality of the water, et cetera, et cetera. And it's basically just a monitoring to make sure that we're still having a strong and healthy lake, which we are at the moment, and we really want to keep up. And that's a lot of the work that Elizabeth's been spearheading in terms of watershed quality preservation.
It
This may be
also,
one, go ahead.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to say, it collects data. We've been collecting data since the 80s on the water quality, so we have a baseline understanding of how much the water quality has changed over the years, and that's important to maintain.
And
One of the things to remember with all that is with water quality comes enjoyment of the lake. If we see, let's say, a rise in phosphorus in the lake, that could precipitate an algae bloom. And none of us would want that. So, it's critical to keep an ongoing record to see the trends and what the water quality is doing, and try to avoid some of these catastrophes that have occurred in other lakes where everything turns green. Stinks.
And knock on wood, over the years, our results have been, for the most part, I would say, fairly good. I mean, it depends on the year. It depends on rainfall, too. In terms of one of the things they use is, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, is a Secchi disc. And they send that, and this is John Boswell, sends it below the surface and to see how far down you can see with clarity. And I think John's done a couple of them already, and they were like, I don't know, 17, 19 feet down that you could see. So the lake on the whole, I think, at least in my recollection in recent years, has been fairly clear. But we want to make sure that people understand that just because we're doing okay now, there's a lot of threats all around us, and this can turn. So it's very important to keep monitoring the lake, which we're doing. He's going to do that 4 times, maybe 5 times this summer.
It's about 10 to 12 times per year. So
Oh,
it's
10 to 12, I'm
twice
sorry.
a month.
Yeah, twice a month.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Another committee is invasive plants. What does that do?
So our committee is in charge of the courtesy boat inspector program. So we hire and maintain an inspector at the public launch who checks boats for plant fragments to make sure that no unwanted plants, invasive plants get into the boat. We also do a yearly kind of survey of the lake to monitor our native flora to make sure that we don't have any invasive plants in the lake. Those are the 2 main things that the committee does.
And we just got, might as well mention our success stories here. We just got a grant for $2,200 or something. You want to say that because part of that is to beef up the courtesy boat inspection.
Yeah, so our courtesy boat inspector program right now is part-time. We have our inspector, Alan, work on weekends and holidays and like hot afternoons. And we would like to have complete coverage as much as possible. And so we've written some grants to expand the program. We've gotten one grant from the New England Grassroots Environmental Fund to expand the program. So that's another project that we're going to have to work on pronto because we have about a year
To do it.
So that's exciting. So what we'd like to do is hire a second inspector who can fill in during the week and check the boats.
And I would just add one other thing that we're doing is just staying in touch with other local lakes to understand what's happening in the region. Last year we got wind of infestation in pond not too far from here. So just making sure that we're aware of those things so that we can beef up awareness and monitoring our lake so that as people bring boats from one lake to another, they're not inadvertently bringing that invasive plant.
And that's been an issue in the past, is that oftentimes we haven't known what's going on around us. I mean, we've had infestations in the Kennebec River down towards Shawmut. We had an infestation in Mill Pond in Norridgewock.
Mill Stream.
Mill Stream in Norridgewock. And these are right on our doorstep. So, based on this, we really need to be very vigilant and making sure we protect our lake. You've actually been involved, Amy, in a program, is it Slack communication program, but so that there can be communication between the lakes when there are infestations or problems, so that we all know.
Yeah, exactly. So Elizabeth and I happened to be speaking to someone last year and found out about an infestation in the Belgrades. And it didn't appear in the newspaper for weeks after. And we thought there's got to be a better or faster way to communicate. And so So this summer we're prototyping a communication platform. It is built on a technology called Slack, which invites everyone from any lake association or lake across Maine. Also the Department of Environmental Protection, Lake Stewards of Maine. It's co-sponsored between us and Maine Lakes. And so we encourage anyone to get on there if you are out on a lake or waterway. And it's just a really easy way to trade information with other people in real time.
Very good. All right. Now, next one I have, and this is a relatively new committee, and it's the Watershed Committee. And maybe, Elizabeth, this might be a good time to
use my cheat sheets
talk
first.
about our 2 years of labor on this thing.
Okay, so the Watershed Conservation Committee formed in August of 2020, and we wanted to increase our reach from just protecting the water to looking out to the entire watershed. And initially what we did is we focused on the common loon as an indicator species. I'm going to read this. The reason why they make a good indicator species is partly because everybody loves them, but the other reason is they are long-lived and they have an important place in the food chain, and so they really reflect the health of the aquatic environment, and of course that in turn impacts human health, so it's important for us as well. So what we started out doing was characterizing we have 4 major wetlands on the lake, and we characterized those and discussed how we might be able to preserve those, the wetlands. We also reached out through Eric to Somerset Woods trustees, and through Somerset Woods trustees, we got in touch with Jennifer Brockway, who has Rise and Shine Consulting, and she helped us create this really wonderful watershed conservation plan, and that took us 2 years of kind of intensive meetings year-round, once or twice a month.
We remember.
On Zoom.
Yep.
And so the way it works, I don't know if you can see this at all. We have 5 major targets. They are the common loon, as I just mentioned, water quality, natural resources, wetland systems, and aquatic biodiversity. And this is also a nice image of the 5 conservation targets. Then for each of those 5 targets, we have specific goals. So I was going to just give the common loon as an example. So our goals include ensure the long-term protection of the habitats, conditions, and resources that support the common loon population on the lake, maintain and protect 3 known remaining traditional nesting sites on the lake. And then, I won't read these, but then beyond those goals we have particular strategies, and a couple of those are to continue with the annual loon count, which we've been doing since the 80s. And also to develop a loon squad that reports, again, kind of in real time on what's happening with the loons on the lake. And there are others, but that's kind of the layers of this watershed protection is from targets to strategies, targets to goals to strategies for each of these.
And this is obviously, in order to make this work, I mean, this is kind of a 10-year plan. But we have short-term strategies that we're going to employ for the next 1 to 3 years, I think. And honestly, this is going to mean involvement by a lot of people. We hope that people become really invested in this because we need volunteers to help us. We're an 11-member board of trustees, and we can't do this all by ourselves. But we're kind of hoping that we can get volunteers. Matter of fact, we'll talk about the annual meeting eventually, and that might be a way to get a few volunteers to help us out. But folks, we need help on this. So now, the road committee. Just quickly, we've had a road committee going for quite a while, and Jay Conway is the head of that road committee. And why do we have a road committee?
Well, I guess I can jump in there for a little bit. Most of the roads leading down to the cottages around the lake are dirt roads. And when we get heavy rainfall, a lot of the fine silt and it all flows downhill and ultimately will wind up in the lake. And a lot of this silt, these real fine dust particles, carry phosphorus with them. So if this phosphorus winds up in the lake and we raise the level of phosphorus so the algae, figure it's a smorgasbord out there, and we end up with an algae bloom, a lot of it can be laid back to erosion from camp roads. So the Roads Committee has been very active in meeting with road associations, groups of owners on a particular road that maintain and upkeep the roads, to provide water breaks and attempts to control this erosion. So, yeah, the roads are a critical factor in this whole business.
And we've been looking at, what would you say, on average, at least 5 or 6 roads a year. We identify, and somebody told me they're like, oh my God, it's like 70 roads or so around the lake to look at.
Jay said 72.
72
Yeah.
roads, and we've been knocking off 5 or 6 a year. So in 14 years, we'll have it all. But we have had some people take recommendations. There's a fellow by the name of Dave Rope from the state, and we've employed him over in recent years, and Dave has given us a lot of ideas to upgrade the roads, better drainage systems, crowning, a number of things. And in a few cases, we've got some success stories where road associations have taken upon themselves to follow these recommendations from Dave. But we got a long ways to go, and hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, and if, as a side note, a few of the roads are town roads.
Yeah.
And the road commissioner has taken an interest in, particularly the Wesserunsett road comes to mind as an attempt to deal with some of the erosion along that particular road, which is
Town maintained.
town maintained.
Yeah.
And Abnaki Road is town maintained.
Yes, that's
Roads
right.
coming down into Lakewood. So the town also has a role in this whole process. I just would mention, in some ways we're fortunate in that this lake is entirely contained within the town of Madison. And all but maybe a few dozen acres of the watershed is within the town of Madison. So when we're looking at problems with the lake, we only have to deal with one governmental entity.
Right.
As opposed to some of these towns like the Belgrades, which deal with 7 or 8 or 9 towns.
That's right.
And I would just build on it, Eric, and say we get the pleasure of dealing with the town of Madison. Tim Curtis is the town manager. He's been a great supporter of the lake. Many of the folks in his team are as well. So I think we're really blessed with that partnership.
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, Tim Curtis is going to come to speak to our annual meeting and talk about the town's involvement with the lake, what they can do, and all that stuff. So that's a good thing. Now, website, and I guess, Amy, you're probably the best one to address that.
Yeah.
We've come a long ways with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say one thing that just came out of our last meeting is we created a new committee that includes the website called Community Building.
Yes.
So it includes the website, all forms of outreach, and community creation. But yeah, we've just been working on modernizing, basically. So we have a website, and I just encourage anyone who's listening and curious to learn more, wesserunsett.org. or reach out to us at hello@wesserunsett.org. But we have a lot of information about all the things that we do, how to become a member, and you're welcome to be a member regardless of whether you have property on the lake or not. If you enjoy this lake, we really encourage you to consider membership. And so the website just has a wealth of information as well as ways to donate and pay dues.
And so community building. I think that's been a big part of what you have brought us since you've come on the board, and in a lot of different ways, really. And I've made a list, which I can't find at the moment, but I have this quite a list. Do you want to mention some of the things that you've accomplished with our organization since coming on board?
Well, I'll start by saying, one, I've been partnering with Nancy and Elizabeth and a lot of the members of the organization on this. It's been a real team effort. Elizabeth's sister Ann as well. I brought an approach to the lake last summer called design thinking, which is what my profession is. Other terms for it are human-centered design or life-centered design. And it's essentially a process of starting with understanding needs. What are the people's needs? What are the lake's needs, etc. And once we learn those needs, how do we take everyone one step further? How do we build needs? And we do that through experimentation and prototyping. So in that vein, we've tried a zillion different things, and we have plenty more up our sleeves to try. But I'd say the two main things that came out of the work last summer were, one, this lake thrives when there's a strong, thriving community. And so that is really, really important. Us having fun and enjoying each other and getting to know each other is critical to the health of the lake. Second, we're talking a lot about lake preservation. Most people come to a lake for fun. And they want it to be preserved so they can have fun here, but preservation isn't the first mode of entry. And so the second thing that we've really been playing with is, how do we make preservation fun? How do we change this from something that feels like work to something that really is enjoyable? And community is a big part of that.
Absolutely.
So in terms of, just to answer your tangible question of what are the things we've done, examples include, and I'll let Nancy share some of these, but include creating like t-shirts, for instance, to just build a community spirit. Those were also a fundraiser to support preservation. We're playing around this summer with the idea of bingo cards, so kids can go around and look for different things on the lake, blooms, plants. We'll have one invasive plant in there to make sure they don't see that. Those are a few of the things that we've done, and then I'll let Nancy speak to some of the more community.
Before we go to Nancy, we don't want to make her feel left out because she hasn't come in yet, but we're going to. The logo development.
Yes.
And in fact, we got a little meeting on that tonight.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that and why we need a logo.
Yeah, essentially, we're branding the organization, and a brand, if you think about it, is a shortcut to understanding the goals and the purpose of the organization. The best brands, the best brand names, the best brand logos give you in just one visual or one word the spirit of what that organization is doing. And so that's what we're doing with branding here. We're looking for a visual that will help people to recognize us. It'll be something that we'll all be proud to display. It will be on t-shirts, on stickers, etc. But it will give people a visual connection with the lake, which is super important.
Very good. Now, finally, Nancy. The camera is over here now, finally. Social committee. So, as you can tell, we're a pretty serious organization. Our goal is foremost to protect the watershed and the lake. But we like having a little fun, too, as part of it. And I think if we play together, maybe we can work together, right?
Absolutely.
Somebody said something like that, although I think it's the other way around. But so tell us about the social committee and what you've done and maybe what you're planning to do.
Well, the social committee has been very active over the last many years, and basically what we've tried to do is have 2 events during the summer, and most of the events have been at the Lakewood Inn with the help of Katie Quinn. But on June 12th, we thought outside the box, and we had our first Welcome Back to the Lake potluck at the Lakewood Golf Course with the generosity of Kevin Brown, the owner of the golf course, helping us out with that. We had over 60 people, and we had food as far as the eye could see. I was so worried that we wouldn't have enough that I made double batches of a couple of different things, and it was just amazing how happy people were to be there. And just the team effort of putting it on, we had to bring everything in, all the paper products, whatever. We had a setup team, we had a breakdown team. People didn't want to leave, and the take back was, let's just do this again. So we will plan to do another potluck later in the summer. And something else that we did last summer that was extremely well received is that we did what we call pop-up events. So it was sort of a spur-of-the-moment thing. Do you have an idea? Well, let's just run with it. So Amy and I put together a couple of pop-ups at the Bigelow Brewery. And it was amazing how many people just came. There just wasn't a lot of work for anybody. It was just basically a show and go. And so this summer, I'm hoping actually to put together a little golf outing at the Lakewood Golf Course. And again, just a little fun event involving Lake Association members. And Eric is very involved with the Somerset Woods trustees, and there are many hiking trails that are very close to Madison. I mean, there's the Western Woods and Waters over in Madison. We have, is it Jacobs Pines, Eric, right off the Lower Mills Road, and Jackson
Woods,
which is right on
the
East Madison Road. So I thought it would be great if we could just do a little pop-up and invite all our fellow hikers who might like to go out for a few hours and walk some of the woods close to home. Another thing that we are thinking about doing is maybe doing a day paddle or a half a day paddle and explore some of the areas on the lake together. And we are actually this year going to have a presence at East Madison Days, which the date has changed, Eric. It is now the 15th, the 16th, and the 17th of July. And we will have a table, and we're hoping maybe to be able to sell some t-shirts, maybe to raffle off a kayak, and maybe a few other things. And meet fellow friends and neighbors who enjoy East Madison Days, and actually East Madison is right here in our backyard, and it will be great to support them as well. And I don't know, I think that might be it. Other than today is the longest day of the year.
Oh, that's right.
Here we are sitting on beautiful Lake Wesserunsett, enjoying each other, and we have lots of daylight left to be had.
Thank you. Okay, and we have a few other committees, but they're pretty nuts and bolts committees, so I don't think we really need to get into that right now. But I do want to mention a few other things. We've got our annual meeting coming up on Saturday, July 9th. It's from 9 to 11 a.m. in the morning, and it is going to be the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture is going to host us, and we're going to be at their down on the waterfront where they serve the artists, I guess, food.
Yeah,
right out the front, and we're going to be outside, down front. It'll be a perfect venue, and we are, I guess, extremely fortunate that we have partnered with Alchemist Colony High School in recent years. A lady by the name of Sarah Workna has been absolutely invaluable to us in a number of different ways. We're very fortunate to have her. As a matter of fact, she may be becoming a board member before too long. So.
She knows it.
And hopefully she knows it. So I think she does. I think she agrees. So she has been absolutely fantastic for us. And our school's involvement has been immeasurable in what they've done for us.
Yes,
One of the things they're doing this year is building some kiosks that
Yes.
put out around the various launch points on the lake that will provide some information about invasive plants and other ways of preserving the water quality of the lake.
They helped us build them.
Yeah.
So they were, yeah, we're going to locate them on the campgrounds and at the inlets and
Lakewood.
Yeah, Lakewood and is that it?
Yeah. There's
already one
kiosk
over
in the
here.
boat.
At the boat landing. Okay. And so, anyways, we're gonna have the annual meeting on Saturday, July 9th, 9 to 11, and at that point we'll be looking at committee displays and hopefully getting us a few people to volunteer to help us out on some of our immediate goals that we have here on the lake. And there is a fabulous breakfast which is being put on by the arts school. And we also met at the art school last year in a different location, and they put on a breakfast for us, which was just great. So that's going to happen. Then we're going to have a meeting with reports and hear from Tim Curtis and
Game warden.
and the game warden. Okay. Yep, he's going to be here, and then Elizabeth is going to give us a presentation on the watershed conservation as part of that. So, folks, be there, and this show will be on prior to that. Correct, John?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll get that on air. One other quick thing, and really we spent a lot of time on this, and we want to give a lot of credit to a long-time member of the Lake Association, Will Reed. And Eric, maybe you can speak, and because it's her dad, can speak about all the contributions that Will has given us over the years. Just invaluable.
Yeah, he was kind of the, I don't know what you call it, the driving force behind some of this that we're doing now. I mentioned before we had the series of meetings in the late 90s that resulted in the incorporation of the Lake Association. But Will had started doing water quality sampling 20 years before. He maintains, amazing records. He is probably the most precise person I have ever run into.
Extremely precise.
Being an unprecise person myself, the data that goes back 50 years now, really, almost 50 years, is pretty much due to Will. Absolutely. He also maintains ice in, ice out records, bloom counts, you name it. He's just a trove of information. And that's one of our big challenges, would be to preserve that information.
Well, we've been extremely fortunate to have him, and he is kind of retired, but he is still giving input, thank God. I'm sure that he'll keep showing up at some of our meetings with valuable input. But I just wanted to mention that because Will has just been a treasure for us for all those years. And now, I think we're going to do a change of venue. We're actually going to go out on Nancy's pontoon boat, and we're going to give you a couple of different vantage points on the lake.
Okay, we're looking at Mall Rock right now. You can barely see it with the wave kind of breaking over it, but it's a massive outcropping of ledge that's probably the primary boating hazard on the lake. And the Lake Association puts out these hazard markers to protect boaters from it. Because if you hit that thing at any rate of speed, not only would you ruin your boat, you might just ruin yourself. There's a little bit of history behind Mall Rock. Prior to the damming of the lake, Mall Rock was Mall Island. It was a fairly large little island sitting in the middle of the lake here. And the name has a rather tragic history to it. In the early 1800s, and this is local story, so there's probably a degree of fact to it, but there was an Indian woman who lived in East Madison, or in this area, and she was accused of witchcraft. And as a way of cleansing her soul, perhaps, I don't know what their intent was, torture, they chained her out on Mall Island for, the story goes, several days, and people around the village reported hearing her wailing, through the night as she was chained to the rock out here. The story doesn't go any further than that, so I don't know if she suffered permanent injuries. I don't know if she perhaps died, but it goes back to the rather prevalent belief in witchcraft in the 19th century and the attitude toward Native Americans, which is, rather tragic. So that's Mall Rock. I like to consider it named in honor of that woman who endured that torture out here.
So here is one vantage point from the lake, but we're going to take advantage of Nancy's pontoon boat and zoom around and give you a couple other vantage points on the lake. So let's go, and we'll go to another spot.
Chris is sort of panning a marshland in front of us. There's a loon right square ahead of the boat. Yeah, I don't see a chick with it right now, but there is a nesting site in this area. So, and this area of marshland here is locally known as the sheep yards, as back in the 19th century, sheep were pastured in what was a much more extensive area of land. Yeah, 2 of them have popped up now.
How many loons are on the lake?
Usually, what, a dozen, 15 max maybe. 17. Yeah.
When is the loon count this year?
It's always the third Saturday of July.
I think it's probably the same day as the East Madison Day, because they changed the date, the 17th.
Yeah, yeah.
So where would you like me to go, Chris?
Over by Guzzle.
Go down toward Mud Guzzle.
So where are we at now, Eric?
We're drifting right off the mouth of Mud Guzzle, which is one of the inlet points on the lake. There's several little streams that run in along this stretch of wetland, which drains the watershed to the northwest. This is a fantastic wildlife habitat. If you go into the Guzzle, we won't be going in today, but if you go in with a canoe or a kayak, you'll see blue herons and ducks and geese and muskrats and turtles. It's just a fantastic little spot to kind of lose yourself and get out of the hubbub of the main lake. On one occasion, I saw a moose up in here. There used to be a blue heron rookery in the area, just behind those big pine trees that are sticking up. But I think one of the windstorms several years ago knocked a bunch of the snags where the nests were made. I think it knocked them over, and we haven't seen any rebuilding of heron nests up in this area since. I also had a sighting up here at one time. I am 90% sure was a golden eagle. There's a few in Maine, have been seen occasionally, one up in the Solon area, and I'm pretty sure I saw one roosted on one of the trees over there. I wasn't able to get close enough to be absolutely sure, but it was a big eagle. They're considerably larger than a bald eagle.
And where we're located now, we're up in the northern,
Kind of the northwest quadrant.
northwestern portion of the lake, between Sandy Beach Campground and Abnaki Camping Area.
That's right.
And we've got it nice and calm up here.
Yeah.
This is very nice right now.
Yeah. And one thing we should keep in mind with these wetlands, it's more than just a pretty view. All that vegetation that's growing up there, the cattails and the water plants and all that, helps serve as a filter in the lake and take up nutrients that otherwise would just be deposited and become a permanent part of the water quality. So having these wetlands is, I think, absolutely crucial to the long-term health of the lake.
And the wetlands, or I should say the watershed, Lake Wesserunsett's watershed is really not that large.
Not that large, no.
But it runs from basically the
Solon Town line
yep.
to the White Schoolhouse Road, west to the Route 43, and the East Madison Road is basically the east margin of it. There's a little bit to the east of the East Madison Road, but most of it is contained within that area. So it's a rather small watershed for the size of the lake.
What are the tributaries?
The major tributaries is Hayden Brook that comes in at Lakewood, runs in right behind the theater. Just back of the sheep yards over here, Lawrence Brook comes in. There's 2 or 3 little unknown streams that come in to Mud Guzzle, and between here and Abnaki. And then up at the kind of the northeastern tip of the lake, if you look right up that way, yeah, there's another unnamed stream, a couple little unnamed streams that come in at what we call the inlet. And you know, it's not, the name belies the fact that it's not the primary water source, but there is water comes in there, and that's, you know, certainly of value to protect. So yeah, it's this area of the lake, from where you just looked up to the inlet back to Black Point behind us, is probably the most critical piece of property around the lake as far as maintaining water quality long term.
Okay, Eric, where are we now?
We are in the inlet. Right ahead of us is the culvert that crosses where the East Madison Road crosses the inlet, and the inlet itself extends probably, what, 3/4 of a mile up in there of wetlands and little, well, there's 2 or 3 little ponds that feed into it. Ponds, you know, a couple acres, you know, max. And then there's an aquifer that feeds this area as well, up a little further. So this is another, you know, critical area for the lake that protecting that wetland is of great importance. Originally, a lot of this was in resource protection, but resource protection is kind of a transient thing, and by vote of a town meeting, you can change something from resource protection to limited development, and which was done in some of this area and through here 20 years ago, 25 years ago probably. So, you know, any of these wetlands are at risk in that sense. So I think we have to be very cognizant of what's going on around the area.
And that's certainly a duty of the Watershed Conservation Committee, is to
Yeah.
protect those watershed and wetland areas of the lake.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to have a plan going forward as to how we do it.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate any on that, Elizabeth, at all? Or?
Well, I think it's very much a work in progress for us at this moment.
Yeah.
But part of what we did early on was connect with Somerset Wood trustees, so that if we should acquire some conservation land, we're not a land trust, so Somerset Wood trustees could take it over and manage it.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, that's pretty much as far as we've gone.
That's kind of our bottom line strategy there. Is if we can acquire either through direct ownership or in fee ownership, or through conservation easements, then hand off to Somerset Woods to do the long-term management.
And am I correct in understanding that part of that management would be allowing people access for hiking and things
like
Yeah.
that.
Certainly
Just
it
not
does.
building, basically.
Yeah, it would, the land should remain undeveloped, but there's no problem with establishing hiking trails or natural area sites and things of that sort. And even on some of our properties, we do limited wood harvesting. You know, usually the purpose isn't just to make money; it's for habitat improvement or forest land improvement.
Well, I think I thank you folks for being on the show this morning. Eric Lottie, Nancy Macon, Amy Bonzel, and Elizabeth Payne. Thank you all for being on our show this morning, and hopefully you've learned quite a bit about the Lake Wesserunsett Association, and hopefully you'll be inspired to help us out in all the tasks that we've got coming forward, particularly with the Watershed Conservation Committee. So thank you very much, everybody, and now you know.